wondering whether to set up under the house or in the garden. Yes.
Oh, people do.
Yeah.
Whatever's easier for them.
Good, so thank you also very much for coming on time. And I would like to hand you over to our very knowledgeable John, who will give us our tour today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Lady's Cemetery here, you'll see that the headstones are mainly dominated by three types of monumental stone. You've got first of all the granites, both the grey and the red granite. The red granite, I might point out, the actual monuments would have been much more expensive because that would have had to have been introduced to the area by the monumental masons. You have the marble, and you have the Stanwell sandstone. Now, this industry back in the 1800s and early 1900s was quite a wealthy and quite a productive industry in this town. We had monumental masons like Jenkins, the Jenkins family in the early days, and later on F.M. Allen, which most of you will remember. They took over the Jenkins works, and we also had three very significant quarrying areas within easy distance of Rockhampton. Now, most of the granite, the grey granite, came from Gracemere, and those quarries are still highly visible out there. If you go out, particularly into what's now around the newer suburbs of Gracemere, the newer areas, and you will find those very extensive granite quarries out there. There's another quarry on a property owned by a friend of mine, Hedley Johnson, that was also a source of granite. Now, the actual sandstone, again German migrants, and of course most of you are of the age as I was in our teenage years, going to dancing classes run by Edna Schottger, and she was a member of that family. And of course you had Schottger's pharmacy, the chemist shop up in, I think it was William Street. The old Fitzenmeyer grave. Now, Louis Fitzenmeyer was actually a builder, and he actually built the Normanby Hotel building on the corner of Bolsover and William. If you remember the old Normanby building, it was, in my youth, it had a widow's walk on the top of it, a nice tower on top, which didn't survive the 1949 cyclone that hit Rocky, but it's now noted on at the Mackenzie River crossing while they're on gold escort. It was very interesting. This fella Griffin had been the chief constable here in Rockhampton for a while. He was a fairly educated bloke, but he was an awful, well, he craved social distinction, and he was a creepy, crawly type as far as people in authority were concerned. And while he was here, he sort of tried to endear himself to a number of locals of senior position, and he ended up being transferred to Brisbane, where he became a clerk of petty sessions, and then he was promoted by his easing his way into prominent politicians, and he was very quickly promoted to magistrate and gold commissioner based at Clermont. Now he took up that position, and his arrogance and his absolute misconduct as far as people were concerned earned him, he became a hated figure, particularly amongst the landholders and some of the very prominent citizens of Clermont, including Oscar de Sage, who was probably the founder of Clermont and the namer of Clermont. He named it after the de Sage family home area in Normandy. And he was, he was considered, while he was there, this condemned man apparently, there's another inmate that know where some of the money was. And apparently he'd hidden it in a tree stump out around Port Curtis Road area. And of course that money was duly found. Griffin himself hanged, and he was, because he was an Anglican and of education, unlike all the other Anglicans, and he was immediately employed as by a gardener by the municipality in Brisbane, and as a scientific gardener, and he was, now you might be wondering about this term, a scientific gardener. In those days, gardeners actually, on some of the big estates and some of the collections, had to be very well versed in botany, and this one because we can say by telling him that Kidston led the first split in the Labour Party. That's the first breakaway in the Labour Party, and which he did. And he formed a group that used to be referred to as Lib Labs, because I reckon they weren't quite sure what they were. But now John Hedrick established a general retailer that built those great Hedrick's building. I might point out now Hedrick's Lane behind becoming more popular for various reasons. But actually, I might point out the name Hedrick associated with alcohol brewing isn't new, because Rockhampton's second brewery was the Kent Brewery, which was actually opened by Hedrick's on the site of St Teresa's Church, which is on the corner of Albert and also Street there. And that was the site of the Hedrick's Brewery, the Kent Brewery. And the Welcome Gold Mine, which became the most productive gold mine in Moornish. And William McMaster became the managing partner. The other partner was actually Burns and Twig. Burns and Twig owned half of the mine, McMaster's the other half, with McMaster as the managing partner. Now, one particular time, they were opening a new workings, which was below the old workings, and one of the miners had clocked in sick, so William decided to take his place, and he and 3 other miners went underground to work on the new workings. Unfortunately, they broke through the floor of the workings above them, which was flooded, and they drowned like rats. And they hauled the body out, and the actual, the 3 men were buried in the Moornish cemetery out there. I used to visit that cemetery as a small boy when the graves were still upright before the local neighbours' cows had knocked them over by using them as scratching posts. But actually, William McMaster was buried here in Rockhampton. The family was very ill-starred. He had a 16-year-old son, William Jr., who decided to go into the mining industry too. And he was mining at Rosewood, and he was killed. And so in the McMaster family plot, you've got William Sr., William Jr., and you've got Jessie McMaster, who was the actual wife of William McMaster. But she was buried much later. Now, when William McMaster died, he left a fairly large family. The older members of the family took charge of family affairs. They were in their 20s, well in their 20s. There was also a 5-year-old boy, little Fergus. And he's the fellow that we're particularly interested in now. Because after the war, after the First World War, a couple of former Flying Corps members decided that the best way of opening up the West and in the remote areas was by air. And they decided they wanted to form a group called the Queensland and Northern Territory Aerial Service. But they had no money. So anyway, by this time the McMaster family were very prominent in the West in the grazing industry. And Fergie had the money and liked the idea. So when Qantas was floated as a private company in the 1920s, Fergus McMaster became the principal shareholder and the first chairman of the board. And he remained chairman of the board for many, many years of Qantas. He's memorialised in the McMaster grave here, but he's not buried here. He was a famous, but he became very, very famous, and Sir Fergus McMaster. Actually, when they ran into him after the war to put the proposition to him, he was actually had formed a group called the anti-cattle duck. Now this is the grave of a very well-known early figure in our history, George Barnsley Shaw. Young William came out. He very soon established a reputation for ill-using the local populace, being very, very cruel to the natives and so forth. And he paid the price. They tomahawked him.
They got their own back.
They tomahawked him. And they took up the land. The original house that existed on Glenmore prior to this is a slab hut still in existence out there. Now Mr Birkbeck showed his Mexican background by the development of limestone, sorts of limestone out there, and developing a limestone house. He then purchased an old pub from Parkhurst and brought it in and put it on Glenmore Station. That's the larger wooden building out there. And they had a very large number of sons. The interesting toilet is still there. It's an interesting two-seater. And actually it's on the riverbed. And you don't have a pan. You've got a sort of a sluice that slides, everything slides down the creek, the riverbed. I generally find when we always have our Queensland Day lunch at the Historical Society at Old Glenmore Homestead. And if I think anybody's a wee bit
coffee knows, I generally like taking them, so the early